Gaurav, this is the Global Digest think tank group. You are our guest today.
So my master's degree, I have a master's degree in modern Indian history, and because it is such a vast field, I don't think anyone should ever claim to be an expert in it. But having said that, I have some experience, not a lot. And as for my background, I'll just briefly tell you. I started out as a lawyer. I went to law school. I studied law for 5 years. Then I worked for a couple of years in the NGO sector in India. I I got a degree in I got a master's degree in modern Indian history. Um, and After that, I worked in a lot of different sectors. At the moment, I taught myself how to program about a couple of years ago, and this is what I'm focused on right now. I also am a self-taught musician, and my experience with Buddhism is because I've been meditating, I've been learning for since 2008. So, the particular tradition in which we learn is, you may have heard of it, it's generally called the Vipassana movement. And it is something that is very active in India and also in several other places where the focus is on meditation. So what they do is they host the foundation that teaches this form of meditation. Um, they host meditation retreats, and it's completely free. It's free for everyone.
I see.
So I've been doing this for since 2009, and obviously I have a background in history as well.
I
So
see many religions
yes,
came
yes.
out from India.
The
The
name was
Gauramahasanka, and he is what kind of class? He is Brahmin class or he's a monarchy? That time the kingdom or the territory is called Sakya. Sakya.
Sakya,
Yeah.
Sakya
So
clan.
why
Yes.
don't you let us know exactly what is the kingdom and how's the background of Buddha and how's who are the relative of Buddha and what is his class and something like that if you know as
I
much.
I will I will briefly attempt to clarify this. So the story that pretty much every Buddhist knows, and which I think there is very wide agreement on this story, was that the person who later became the Buddha was born in a Kshatriya clan, which is a clan of warriors called the Sakya clan, and sometime around 5th century BC. So this would be around 2500 years in the past. And the story is that he underwent a transformation in his life, and as a result of this transformation, he became the awakened one. And once he became awakened, he was given the title of Buddha, which literally means the awakened person. And thereafter, he spent his life as a monk, teaching others the method through which he himself had become awakened. Uh, Now, the thing is that even though this belief system originated in, what is today India, in fact, the place where we say that the wheel of Dhamma was first turned is is a place called Sarnath near present-day Varanasi in northern India. But the it just so happens historically that today in India, Buddhism is not one of the most famous, most popular religions. It has some followers, but their number is quite small. Probably around, I think there was a census counting in 2011 where only about 8.5 million people self-identified as being Buddhist. And given India's huge population, this is a very small number. Uh, but
But
it so happened that historically, Buddhism spread into many of the neighboring countries. For example, there was no one of the key figures that is associated with the spread of Buddhism in many of the neighboring nations. For example, Burma, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, would be Emperor Ashoka, who was an emperor of the Mauryan Empire. And this would be about 200 to 300 years after the life of the Buddha. This particular person, Ashoka, he underwent a transformation. He became Buddhist, and he ended his life as a Buddhist monk. But he carried on living as an emperor for some time, and he changed his policies in accordance with the Buddhist teachings, and he also sent emissaries to Sri Lanka, to Burma, to Cambodia, and to several other countries which are today, we may say that these countries today they'll form Central Asia, Afghanistan, and this entire region. And of course, there are other transmissions. For example, Buddhist teaching went to Tibet, it went to China, it it went to Mongolia, Japan, and so forth. And in the 20th century, we see again we again see how do you say it, a renewal, so to speak, of Buddhist traditions. For example, Buddhism to some extent spread into the Western countries. And you also have several neo-Buddhist. There is a neo-Buddhist movement in India called Navayana, which is some Buddhists will have some issues with each other, saying that this is not proper Buddhism. Others will say this is proper Buddhism. But the fact is that all of these various movements are tracing their origin back to the Shakyamuni Buddha. And let me also briefly say why he is known as Shakyamuni, because he was born in the Shakya clan. And the word Muni simply in India, in the Sanskrit language, it simply means a person who is quiet. So he was a person who remained quiet. He only spoke when it was very necessary, and this is why he was given, amongst many other titles, the title of also Shakyamuni. The Buddha is a title. He is not the Buddha is an individual human being. He's not. We cannot compare him to a god or an angel or anything like this, because he himself pointed out that I am very much human. Um, and So yeah, so therefore we cannot think of it in the same way as we might think of angels or devatas in Christianity or Hinduism, or any, even though you have in certain Buddhist traditions, for example, in the Buddhist tradition in Tibet, you will have many deities. Some of them are beneficial deities, some are harmful deities. So Buddhism has a pantheon, but ultimately it is based on around the teaching of a single human being whom we call Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha.
I see. I see. Sakya is, you said, a clan's name, or it is a
Yes.
nation, republic nation, or how can you consider?
Well, it was the clan in which he was born. Now, the thing is that the time at which the Buddha was born, uh, it was not exact. It was not the way India is today. For example, today we have one central, one union government, and many state governments. At that time, there were several kingdoms, as well as there were several small republics as well. So it was many of these states existing side by side. And he was the name of the clan into which he is born was Shakya. The tribe, the larger tribe of which this clan was part, is known as the Lichavi tribe. Now, these names, these tribes, and these clans, they do not exist anymore. So, all this is historical information, which, again, as you know, historians they will contest information. One set of historians may feel that this is the way it was, and another set of historians may feel that it is not the case. Something else was but this is the generally accepted view that this is the name of the clan. Now, the caste system, I should briefly tell you something about this so that it becomes a little clearer to understand. Siddhartha Gautama himself was a prince. So his father was a king, and he was a prince. He was going to be uh, the king, but he renounced his claim to the kingdom, and instead he started to learn meditative practices. He started to learn um, um, at the time the practices which were prevalent. And after many years of study, he realized the proper method which should be followed.
The
Uh,
Sakya is a small republic, small kingdom, and it's
yes,
also a clan.
it is today in Nepal. But the places where the Buddha preached, where the first missions were established, were in India.
I see.
So it is in a place called Lumbini in
I
Nepal.
see. I see.
That is also a pilgrimage center. That is also a pilgrimage center. Many people go there. With respect to in India and Nepal, you have two or more genetic types mixing. So there is
Uh,
a contiguous region where the people have features both from the eastern uh,
Tibet,
stock
Tibet.
as well as from the South Indian stock or the North Indian stock. So you have very mixed looking population.
Right.
And in fact, in India, most of the people in India, genetically, we are all mixed. We are not, none of us is like, we are like this. We are all mixed people. Um, so we actually don't know what the Buddha looked like in person. However, the images that we get of the Buddha, this is an important topic. Um, the first images of the Buddha that were created, they were created in stones. And the two chief art styles were the one is called the Mathura school of art, and the other is called the Gandhara school of art. The Mathura school of art originates in what is today presently Uttar Pradesh in northern India, and the Gandhara school originates in what is today Afghanistan. Now, these two schools they depicted the Buddha in slightly different ways. For example, the famous image we see of the Buddha with the curly hair, that is from the Mathura school. This is slightly earlier way of representing Buddha. And the other images that we see of the Buddha, where the Buddha is smiling and he is calm, these are coming from the Gandhara school of art, which had a very, which where Indian as well as Greek uh, styles of depiction of art, they mixed together. So they created a new way of representing, um, amongst other things, the Buddha. So even the images that we have of the Buddha, uh, we do not know what he looked like in person. But what we have is, how people in later centuries represented him, um, in whether they were influenced by the Gandhara school of art or they were influenced by the Mathura school of art. And depending on this, you have different types of images of the Buddha. And of
I
course,
see.
when Buddhism traveled to other countries, For example, if Buddhism goes to China, then the people are going to, obviously, the people are going to be like, hey, the Buddha looks like one of us. So they will draw him like
Uh,
one of them.
like
If the,
fat guy,
if,
in China they draw Buddha picture like fat person.
no, that actually that's a myth. That person was a monk. He is not a Buddha, but many people think that this is a Buddha. No, but he was a monk. He was a holy person, but he was not Siddhartha Gautama. Anyway, like it doesn't matter. See, because ultimately the practice is more about following the noble eightfold path, following the principles of morality, meditating, and it doesn't matter. Images not so important, personality not so important. Even so, for example, even when we, when we want to learn, for example, in the tradition that I study in, when we want to learn how to meditate, we we make a request to our teacher according to tradition, and we say Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, which literally means I go to take refuge in the Buddha. Now, it's not about any person. It's not about Siddhartha Gautama. It is about the quality of Siddhartha Gautama, which is the quality of being awakened.
Sakya kingdom, and also
Yes.
Sakya is also a clan's name, as you said.
Yes.
So can
Yes.
you say it is also it is complicated because Nepal is mixed between India and Tibet.
Yes.
The image is difficult to exactly, you said it's difficult to say, and
Hmm.
you don't know any descendant of Sakya clans nowadays. It is Nepali or it is in the Uttar Pradesh
So far
or
as I know,
is there
yeah.
Bihari?
So far as I know, there is no continuity. So maybe somebody will get up and say that, oh, we are related, historically, we are related to the Buddha, but it's just somebody's claim.
So Sakya clan is automatically disappear, or
Yeah,
they are
it
they are
automatically,
they are already mingled with the Nepali population.
it is very likely that those people who existed at that time, they slowly mixed with the other people. And of course, they were already mixed people. But slowly, the clan structure changed, the tribal structure changed, many wars, long periods of peace. And again, you have to realize that we are talking about 2,500 years ago. And also this was a society where oral tradition was very important. People were not so interested in writing things down. So so it was, again, we cannot even be sure this is what it seems to be the case. No one can be certain that yes, exactly it was like this. Nobody can say that. But this seems to be the case
So
based on
we,
historical evidence.
according to location, as is inside Nepal, and
Yeah.
also probably you can say Sakya is mixed into the
Yes,
Nepali population.
most certainly. The thing is that, see, because again, how would we just think about this for a second? If we, for example, if our task was to find out what happened to the historical Sakya people, now we don't have any DNA evidence, so we can't take DNA samples and judge according to that. We don't have any written records. We have written records many hundreds of years after the Buddha was born and after the Buddha's message was first spread. So what we have is just stories. you know. What we have is just, and in fact, in this respect, the sources, the Jain sources, are one of the most authoritative sources because the Jain scholars at the time, they tended to document things in great detail. So many of these stories about where did the Buddha originate, who were the people among who he was born. These stories, they are just at the level of stories. We do not have any practical way to verify them. We cannot point to any archaeological structure and say that this was where the Buddha was born.
So
Uh,
you want to say there is no archaeology evidence about Buddha history?
there is archaeological evidence about the Buddha when he became the Buddha, when he started preaching, because after that many structures were created and many traditions were preserved. For example, we know that the Buddha became enlightened in a place which is today called Bodh Gaya. It is in the province of Bihar in India. And later on, many structures were built there. Um, Similarly, later centuries, many other Buddhist structures were built. So we know where the original Buddhists used to live. We know how the Buddha traveled through India preaching his message. But of his origin, we do not have any, we cannot say that this is the structure in which the Buddha was born, this is the town, you know. We believe that yes, according to sources, this is the town where he was born, but can we prove it? We can't, and we don't have to also.
You mean Lumbini, Sakya?
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
so
we couldn't prove it in the sense of we couldn't show you DNA evidence or anything like that.
and is
Or in
there
case
any
of
archaeology evidence about
yeah.
any description or any language? Which language mostly used at the time of Buddha or Sakya people? Sakya clan used mostly which language? Sanskrit or Pali or how can you say at the time?
Um, I think that most of so Sanskrit was a language that existed at that time. However, Sanskrit was an exclusivist language. It was not the language of the masses. It was the language of a small section of society, which were the learned Brahmins. And the majority of the people, they spoke several dialects, just as even today in India, people speak several dialects. Together, these dialects were called Prakrit, and Pali was a language which is very common. It has elements of Sanskrit as well as elements of Prakrit. So it is kind of like a fusion. Just for example, as today we have in North India, we've got Hindi or Urdu. They are fusions of the local dialects. Uh, Similarly, in the past, Pali language functioned in such a way that people could understand it across India, even if they might be speaking in a slightly different language at home. So, the Buddha's discourses are preserved in the Pali language. You know, the teachings of the Buddha are preserved in the Pali language. Uh, However, since the discourses were only written down centuries after the Buddha passed away, we can assume that the language in which the Buddha preached was related to Pali, but there may have been few differences because, let's say, 200 years, some changes will be there. But for the most part, it will be Prakrit and Pali languages. It will not be Sanskrit because Sanskrit was a language exclusive to the Brahmins.
So Pali, uh, can you say Buddha speak Pali language or which
Yes,
language?
yes, yes. There are There are many, for example, his discourses are all in Pali language, and uh, there are incidents related where the Buddha speaks in Pali language. So we can have a high degree of certainty that the Buddha preached his message in the Pali language.
I see.
Uh, for example, one of the most important words in Buddhist teaching is the word dukkha. Now, dukkha is still there in Hindi, but the meaning has changed a little bit. Whereas earlier in the teaching of the Buddha, it is more about misery or dissatisfaction of every type. In Hindi, it is much more about physical pain. So the meaning has changed a lot. Many of these words, they exist, they still exist. The way it works, the way languages are structured in India is that you have many different groups of people, many different communities living side by side. So, and there are differences in their languages. So, as you travel across India, you will have a situation where you start out with one language. For example, you have the Bengali language, a formalized system of language, which is there in, if you go to Bangladesh, you can speak to the people in Bangla. You go to West Bengal in India, you can speak to the people in Bangla, they will understand you. You
So,
move a little bit
oh,
away.
you mean even Bengali language, they are different
Yeah,
group of
yeah, yeah.
Bengali.
Yeah. Within Bengal also there will be small differences. You move a little bit away, little more difference. You move a little bit away, little more difference. Like this, you keep moving. Eventually, you'll come to Punjab, where people speak Punjabi. Bengali person, Punjabi person, maybe they won't be able to understand each other. Now, Hindi is a, you might say that it's a created language because what actually exists at the level of the villages and communities in India are several, we call them mutually intelligible languages. So, what you have is basically Hindustani dialects. Hindustan is an older name for India. Um, and so you have a family, a galaxy of dialects, many of whom can be understood by other people, even if the language that they are speaking is slightly different. There will be some words which are common, there will be some meanings which are common. And in this way, so for example, in this way, a person from Bihar may be able to understand a person from Bengal. A person from Uttar Pradesh will probably be able to understand a person from Bengal, or in this way, like, so there is some amount of, and again, I'm only talking about North India. The situation in South India is a little different, and there are several tribal languages which are exclusive to those particular tribes, and they are of a different group compared to the Hindustani languages group. So the language situation is very, very, it's diverse in India. Uh, no, with respect to Hindi, the thing is, Hindi was something that was created because Urdu pre-existed Hindi. So in the 19th century, several people, I would say, a section of society, they what they started doing was that they started replacing uh, words that were coming from Persian or Arabic with words that were coming from Sanskrit. So keeping the meaning and the grammar the same, just replacing certain types of words. So you replace Persian words with a Sanskrit equivalent. And in this way, slowly, Hindi was created. Later on, it became quite popular. Many hundreds of millions of people speak it even at home.
So you
And
want to say at the time a little bit Persian, a little bit Arabics are mixed into India.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Hindi
But
language.
of course, like at the time of the Buddha, there were no Persian or Arabic languages in India. So these are all much later developments. But again, this is how language in India has always been. It's always been a mix of many
Maybe
different
after
traditions.
British come, maybe English also a little bit mixed into
Yes,
it.
English has also become an Indian language now. For example, look at me. I'm speaking English, and I can tell you there are at least 2 to 300 million people in India who speak and write English. Uh, there are different attitudes about this. In certain parts of India, English is remembered as the language um of the colonial masters, whereas in other parts of India, English is regarded as a language which helped to liberate the people. Because India is so big, you can have different views about any particular thing. So, for example, the region of India that I come from is closer to the Punjab, and so for us, Bengali is a little bit, we recognize a few words, you know, when some people speak Bengali, we can hear a few words which we are like, oh, I know that word. But we won't be able to understand what they are telling us.
Right.
Whereas a person from Bihar, they might be able to understand much more
I see.
because there will be more words in their language which they have in common with Bengali. We also have some words in common, but the number of words that are there is smaller. For example, the Bengali language that is spoken in West Bengal in India is slightly different from the Bangla language which is spoken in Bangladesh. Even though they both came from the same mother tongue and they are both able to understand each other, they can even speak to each other, but differences are still there. In
Even
this, it's very,
I think, I think, have you
yeah,
been to Bangladesh? I don't know, but even in Bangladesh, maybe Dhaka or southern
yes,
part, or like Chittagong, those Bengali
yes,
language can be also still slightly different.
yes, yes, exactly. And even within Indian Bengal, West Bengal, it's called, you have, Calcutta region has its own slightly different language from, say, somewhere like Salhart or some of the more rural areas. These differences, now there are many reasons why these differences came about. Um Many historical reasons. Yeah, so
Because
that
of
would become a
location,
bigger
because of
sermon.
location, or because of time, many reasons
Because of location, because
different.
of historical factors, because of again caste system plays an very important role in this also.
I see.
In general, upper caste people have tended to have different uh, you know slightly different language from lower caste people. Tribal people have had their own languages, and so it's very like we really have to focus on a particular thing, like to be able to study it. It's very there's a lot to it
I see.
there because they're side by side, right? So there will be a region where the people speak a language which is somewhere between Assamese and Bengali. That's how I would say it. There has to be a region where the people or and a group of people whose language is slightly Assamese, slightly Bengali, but if you think about it, it's their own language. And in fact, if we look at Bengali also, we'll find that within Bengali also, it's not just one Bengali, there are many Bengalis. Uh, if we look at Hindi, we say, okay, Hindi. Actually, there are so many different types of Hindi. It's so even just this idea that we have that, this language, it's that language itself is made up of, you know, so many other uh, in one region there'll be some difference, in another region there'll be slightly different, one community there'll be little different, another community, little bit difference. Together we say, okay, this is Bengali. But we are only able to say it, there is Bengali because, we are looking at it from outside. We're looking at it from a critical distance. If you're living in that universe, it's all you know, right? So it's the whole thing is relative in my view. We cannot. I know that it's a very common thing. People tend to like, but they're not monolithic. Languages are never monolithic. They're always changing. They're always changing.
But
Uh,
how can you say consistent? West Bengal is higher class compared to Bangladesh, or
I mean, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't
which
say that.
are higher class and which are generally considered lower class,
I
lower
wouldn't
class.
say that, this region is higher caste, that region is lower caste. First of all, like, again, this caste is an economic category. At least, it is not something genetic or anything like this. Uh, but in the past, in India, um, this was the case, and even today, it is the case that many of the higher castes, they want to maintain their caste nature, they want to maintain their status as being separate. So one of the ways in which this is done is, they'll have slightly different food, they'll have slightly different traditional clothing, they'll have slightly different language, uh, and so on, right? This is one way in which a caste defines itself. Another important way in which a caste will define itself is that they'll have special rules with respect to getting married. So you might be like, oh, I'm a Brahmin. I cannot marry a person from a lower caste. Or, if this person has married another person from a lower caste, so we have to remove these people from. Like, these are all very unjust things that people do, right? But these are the ways in which castes maintain themselves, by excluding people, by distinguishing themselves in terms of the markers, like language or food or clothing or um, things of this sort. Um,
So maybe probably ancient time. Kolkata
yeah,
is much famous, and maybe Bengali in Kolkata are mostly high class people, high caste people.
there's a lot. I mean, because Calcutta itself is huge, right? Calcutta itself is a big, big city, but upper caste people have had a huge influence in designing Calcutta. They had a much more bigger influence in determining what is built, what is not built, what is taught, what is not taught, what is considered good, what is not considered good, in this way. So that's why they have had an outsized influence. Um, I think in Bengali they're called Bhadralok, which literally means gentleman, right? Um, so, and that's how they saw themselves,
So
right?
they are
And
from
again, we're
Kolkata.
talking,
They are from Kolkata.
yeah. And again, one of the reasons why, like this caste of people considered themselves superior, and we're talking modern India now, is because they were the first ones to interact with the British and to adopt British ideas. Uh, so they distinguish themselves in this way from the people around them. Um, and and naturally, quite naturally, many of the upper caste people, for example, people coming from Brahmin backgrounds, they very naturally, uh, gelled into the British influence. They were very naturally able to adopt uh, British ideas compared to the local the lower caste people who are mostly the laboring classes for the most part, who are the laboring classes like
During
yeah.
Bangladesh independence, West Bengal,
Mhm.
Kolkata, uh, those Bengal upper class people are a big role. They play big role for independent of Bangladesh. I heard. I don't know. Probably you know more about during separation partition.
Mhm. Um, so the partition of Bengal is still, it's very much a thing that is being actively researched even today. And because Islam uh, has much more influence in Dhaka than it does in Calcutta, for example, and because Islam says that human beings are equal, you're not supposed to have, one human being which is superior, one is inferior. So even if people don't practice this, there is still at least an idea that the people are equal. Uh, but I'm pretty sure they don't follow it because people don't follow this anywhere. But in the Brahminical scheme, in the what we nowadays call Hinduism, uh, the idea there is there that some are superior, some are inferior. There's no equality concept. This is again one of the things that distinguishes Hinduism and Buddhism, because in the Buddhist thought, human beings are equal. They are not superior, they're not inferior.
Buddha Gautama, Buddha he was prince, and also he many people consider as Brahmin upper class. So
Well,
uh,
he was from a
can you
Kshatriya
say
background.
he is
Yeah.
Brahmin and upper class and prince?
No, I don't think so. I would disagree with that because, firstly, the story that we have is that he was from a Kshatriya background, which is not Brahmin, but it is considered upper caste. Uh, and secondly, because the Buddha rejected caste, Buddhist teaching rejects caste. It does not accept that some human beings are superior to others. So, and he himself lived like a monk. He did not, he did not go back to being a prince. He renounced that. He did not rule as a prince.
So
So we cannot call him upper caste.
in India, you don't consider Sakya clan as a Brahmin class, Brahmin.
We don't think about the clan at all. We don't think about the clan at all.
I see.
I mean, personally for me, like it's not important at all where he was born. It
Because
isn't.
some people say Sakya, I mean Buddha himself is a Brahmin. So that is also a
No,
controversial
it's a
controversial
completely
thing, right?
irrelevant, like first of all, I don't think that he was a Brahmin, but even if he was, so what? Because he did not live like he did not participate. He lived like a monk who does not own any property, a monk who does not get married, does not have children, and
And
does not have any servants, does
and
not have any
Buddha,
property.
thank
Yeah.
you, Gaurav. Have a
Thanks.
good day. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye
day.
bye.
Yes. Bye.